Good afternoon and welcome to the Brand Storytelling live streams for June 17th, 2020. I'm Drew Parkhill. Thanks for being with us. These live streams are aired every Wednesday afternoon, and our mission is to deliver the most timely and relevant information for our community of brands and their storytelling partners. These shows are designed for you, so please let us know how we can best serve the community by suggesting future topics and guests that would help you now as well as into the future. You can drop me a line. I'm Drew at BrandStorytelling.tv. I want to introduce our host today. Dean Takahashi is the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat, and he's been a tech journalist for more than 28 years, and he's covered games for 21 years. Dean, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, as Andrew mentioned, I am the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat. We cover the game industry, we cover tech and AI, and we also put on our GamesBeat conferences. We have a metaverse conference coming this fall, actually, and an AI conference happening on July 15th. And our topic today is the audience segmentation and gamer personas. And as we all know, gaming has become a $160 billion industry. In May, NPD reported that video game sales in the US were up 52%, and in April, sales were up 73%. And this is at a time when spending should be lower because we're in the last part of a console cycle. But as you know, the pandemic has had a benefit for gaming. 82% of global consumers played video games and watched video game content during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. And 46% of US gamers have said that they are playing more games now because of the pandemic. And yet our sort of understanding of who gamers are doesn't seem to have advanced very much. The stereotypical persona for a gamer has been around for years. It's a white teenager or young adult living in its parents' basement. And we're going to debunk this myth with our panel today. So I'm going to introduce our panelists. We have a Shakedown 2012. We have Tak Anderson, who is the head of lifecycle and performance marketing for Twitch Prime. Jennifer Dill, Vice President for Esports at Turner Sports, and Kiko Restrepo, the Senior Director of Strategy for Fullscreen. And we're going to have Kiko, I'm going to have everybody actually go around and just say a bit more about themselves and what they do. And we'll start with Shake. And Shake, your mic is off.
Hello, everybody, again. Shakedown 2012, I'm a YouTuber. I have several platforms that I stream and provide content for, have well over 1 million followers on YouTube and several other platforms where I have a pretty large following in certain industries. I tend to cover most games, but generally on my YouTube channel, I cover sports and the basketball sort of industry. We talk about different types of topics in relation to things that are going on in real life and as it pertains to video games. And I'm also a proud father of 4, and I've been doing this for well over 10 years. Been self-employed in the gaming industry for about that amount of time. So been fun.
Living the dream there. And Jennifer?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Dill. I'm the Vice President of Esports at Turner Sports. Really, my job includes managing our partnerships, operations, and strategic planning for our entire esports division, which includes Eleague, which is our esports and gaming entertainment brand.
And Tak.
Yeah, Tak Anderson. I run lifecycle and performance marketing for Twitch Prime. Twitch Prime is Amazon's Prime benefit for gamers. So we kind of sit at the Venn diagram intersection of Twitch and Amazon Prime. So I work both sides of the house. I've been at Amazon for about 7 years, doing marketing a lot longer than that. And yeah, excited to be here.
Mhm. Great, and Kiko, why don't you introduce yourself and kick us off as well on your audience research here.
Sounds good. Hey everybody, my name is Kiko Restrepo. I am a Senior Director of Strategy at Fullscreen, and very excited to share the research that we have for you guys today. So I'm just going to jump right in because we have a lot of really great information to share with you guys. Great. So, as the title says, the gamer has evolved. No longer is it that stereotype that Dean had just called out. There are a lot of more new gamers coming into the gaming audience landscape, and it's no longer dictated simply by the platform alone. So the way that we framed this research was to understand the gaming consumption by amount of hours played per week. And what we found was that broke us up into 3 main cohorts. So we have your power gamers, which spend over 21 hours per week on gaming, and this represents about 34% of gamers in the gaming audience. Then we had the mainstream gamers, who are 28% of gamers who spend between 11 and 20 hours a week on gaming. And finally, we have your casual gamers. This is the 39% of the gaming audience who spend 5 to 10 hours a week on gaming. And I think, not to give it all away, but I think this is the most exciting group to me. They are the biggest group, and I think one of the groups that we would not have expected. And there's some interesting stats when we look at their snapshots. As a frame of reference, if you want to understand what these percentages mean when it comes to size of the population. So gaming as a whole makes up 31% of the US population. So roughly that's about 100 million people. And so each one of these groups is roughly about 30 million people, depending on the percentage plus or minus, which is a significant group and size of opportunity. So each of these are really big chunks, and it's really exciting to see that they're pretty evenly split across the different levels of gaming consumption. So jumping right into understanding the power gamers. So this makes up 34% of all gamers. They play a lot. So we had put the threshold at 21 hours plus, but they're actually playing closer to 55 hours on average. They skew pretty predominantly male at 80%, but we should not discount the fact that there is a 20% size of the female representation here who are growing in size in all these representations, and they're playing or they're investing $167 on average per year on video games. As gamers, they're most likely to watch esports and play in an esports tournament, and they're most likely to play MMO games. As people, they're most likely to be single and working part-time. And the theory that we have when we saw that stat was this is likely the people who are creating content, who are streamers, who are most likely to be professionals and working in the gaming space. So that's why you see that correlation between really high hours of playing and the fact that they're working part-time. They are likely working in the industry, creating content and streaming, and also participating in the gig economy. As a group, this section is also the most diverse segment. So they are 41% multicultural. I will say there wasn't that big of a range though between amongst all 3 of the different groups. There was a really good representation of multicultural audience and participants across each of the different demographics, from 41% to about 39 or 38%. The power gamers happened to be the most diverse out of all of them, but each of the different cohorts were pretty well represented in terms of all different types of backgrounds. As consumers, the power gamers, there's a strong correlation between gaming and being a techie. So you see them spending more on apps and cameras and computers and software, which is easy to expect. And they also have a strong influence in new technology, home electronics, and movies. which is to say that they are advocates. They're usually they're leaders in their communities on these different topics and are pretty influential when it comes to those topics. When it comes to social platforms, all three of the different cohorts are high users of the four main platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. But then we noticed some differences on the next platforms that were peaking for each of the different cohorts. And for power gamers, we saw a high index of Discord. Now, when it comes to the mainstream gamers, we see that they represent 28% of all gamers. So a reminder that these are the people who are playing between 11 and 20 hours. And there's a really significant difference in hours played. So whereas the power gamers were playing around 55, the mainstream gamers are playing 16 hours, which kind of solidifies that theory that the power gamers are more likely to be working in the industry in some capacity. They are slightly less male than the previous cohort at 73%. But what's interesting is that they're spending almost at the same level as the power gamers at $163 per year on average. As gamers, there is a nuance here that they are have the strongest interest in esports and most likely to attend an esports event. So whereas the power gamers are most likely to be participating in esports, the mainstream gamers are the most likely to be watching or attending an esports event. This group is the least likely to be a mobile or handheld device user. And the reason that is because the casual gamers who aren't on PCs or consoles are more likely to be on mobile or handheld devices, and the power gamers are more likely to be on all devices. So that just leaves the mainstream gamers to be the least likely to not be on those devices. As a group, the mainstream gamers skew towards full-time employment and have a high likelihood to have children, which is something that they share with the casual gamers, as you'll see in a second. And as consumers, you see that they spend more on kind of the family type of big ticket items like cars, home furnishings, fast food, family restaurants, and they have strong influence in physical fitness, cooking, wine, sports, and TV shows. All that to say that it's likely that this is a young family on average as a whole. When it comes to social platforms, again, we see the four main platforms, but we also see a pop when it comes to Reddit for the mainstream gamers. And finally, the section I'm most excited about, we have the casual gamers, right? So this is a really big group. They're 39% of all gamers. They game at about 7.5 hours a week. They are the least of all the three cohorts in terms of male populations at 68%. And they're spending pretty close to the other two cohorts amounts at $136 per year on video games, which says to me that even though that they're gaming less and they're gaming on different platforms and gaming for different reasons, they're still investing in gaming in different ways at significant levels and pretty close to levels of the other cohorts. I like to think that this is because they're maybe starting in freemium type of games and might be purchasing bit by bit rather than making larger investments as a whole outright. So that is one potential reason why we're seeing similar levels of spend on video games. As gamers, they're motivated for creative exploration, achievement, and problem solving. They're least likely, as expected, to use console or PCs to game, and they're least likely to play MMO games. As a group, they have the highest household income, but I will say that all three groups were in the 80K range. This group just happens to be at the higher range of the 80K range. And this is the oldest skewing segment, but again, there was a small range for that as well. They were in their 30s, all three groups in terms of mean age, but this group was on the older skewing of the 30s. most likely to be married, most likely to have children, and to be working full time. So again, very family oriented, and particularly when it comes to young families. So we believe that it's young families also playing with their kids as well. As consumers, they spend more on clothing, shoes, cell phones, domestic and foreign vacations, and they have the strongest influence when it comes to fashion, beauty, healthy living, coffee, and gardening. When it comes to platforms, I thought it was really interesting that yes, they over-index in relation to the rest of the US population when it comes to the 4 main platforms, just like the other gamers, but also this group peaked when it came to LinkedIn, which might give us an insight as to how to potentially be reaching and thinking about communicating with this group. I will say that it's likely that the casual gamers and the mainstream gamers, but definitely the casual gamers, aren't going to be considering themselves gamers. This is just a part of the way that culture has shifted, that gaming has proliferated and been a part of everybody's reality. So whereas the power gamers are likely to identify as gamers, there's a very big section of the population that is gaming, even though they might not identify themselves as gamers. So when you're thinking about a gaming strategy, it doesn't necessarily only have to go towards the stereotype or the power gamer that you normally think of when you think of gaming. There's a large, diverse group that are gaming at significant levels and investing at significant levels in gaming. We have one more bonus category here, and we know that this has come up because of everything that's happened in the pandemic. So US saw the largest growth in 46% in video game engagement during the height of COVID-19. And we have a fun timeline here showing all these amazing stats from different platforms in the middle to late March. So on March 17th, we saw Verizon reporting a 75% increase in video game usage during peak hours in relation to the previous week. Thursday, on the 19th, we saw Discord reporting a 200% increase in signups after the app extended use beyond gaming into distance learning for universities. On Sunday, the 22nd, a really amazing milestone, we saw eNASCAR, the iRacing Pro Invitational Series was launched, and its broadcast was the most successful televised esports event to date with 900,000 viewers. On Monday, the 23rd, we saw Twitch seeing 2.8 million concurrent viewers, which was the highest peak up until that point since E3 2019. That stat has recently been surpassed in June when PS5 had their live stream. And that would go on to break the record with 3 million concurrent viewers on Twitch. And then on Tuesday, March 24th, we saw Steam hit a new peak of 22 million concurrent gamers. All of this to say is that this is not an anomaly. This is not in just one platform. This is not just one audience. It couldn't have been just the power gamers that were responsible for all this surging. We think that it was a lot of lapsed gamers, a lot of people who were curious about gaming previously, a lot of people who were perhaps part of the mainstream gamers or perhaps part of the casual gamers who have re-engaged with gaming at higher levels. So this is a really exciting opportunity and an exciting time for the gaming industry, and I think it's our responsibility to keep up the momentum.
All
so
right.
that's
Thank
what
you.
I have for you guys. I'm gonna throw it
Thanks,
right back.
Kiko. I'm kind of wondering if this surprises anybody or there's anything here that resonates with you. Maybe let's start with Jennifer.
Sure. I mean, I don't think anything is a particular surprise to me. I think what it does show is it really shows the breadth of the ecosystem and just overall sort of what gaming has to offer. I think what's important here is this just notes the people who play themselves. And I think, you know, Kiko touched on this a little bit from an esports perspective in terms of people who also enjoy watching. But I think when you think about the gaming ecosystem, there's also just a general sort of lifestyle that goes into gaming. So you might be playing, you might be watching others. There's just so much to that. And I think one of the really interesting stats that was in there was how close the willingness to pay, the dollar amounts were for each of the different categories. And when you look across genres, when you look across games, whether it's mobile, where there's sort of a freemium model, or if you're talking about retail for something like a Mortal Kombat, which is in the $30 range, or something like Call of Duty that's more expensive, there's just so many different touch points that are in there. And I think it's just such a great illustration of how almost anyone in our lives is now a gamer in some way, shape, or form, even if they're not calling themselves that.
Mm-hmm. And Shake, anything from your perspective as well?
I like what I saw. To me, I obviously I see myself as a power gamer, someone who's an influencer, someone who is going to play competitively, someone who is going to promote competitive gameplays, who's going to promote these big events. But I look at that base, the power gamer base, because these are the parents or the current gamers that are going to advertise the gaming industry to everyone. We're also going to be the ones to teach our kids that it's actually cool to play games. Like, we're going to play sports, we're going to do stuff outside the house, but I'm not my parents who are limiting for specific time frames where, you know, we cannot play or whatever. We're almost introducing a gaming lifestyle to the kids, not in a bad way, but saying, hey, it's cool. It's not something that you need to shy away from. When I was coming up, I was an athlete, still an athlete, but I remember that environment where if you were a gamer, girls would look at you like you're some kind of a nerd or something like that. No, we're embracing that culture. Man, I like the power gamer side of things, because we're the ones that are making sure that everyone's cool with it. And as long as we say it's cool, and then you have your, you know, the other two categories coming on, the casuals, they're more than likely going to, you know, move up that ladder eventually, you know, over time, especially when you have things like a pandemic. So people are getting into it, and I think people are having a good time, and we're all starting to embrace the gaming culture.
And Tack, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, the stereotypical gamer, that persona that everyone kind of thinks of. You know, use the example, the guy in his basement, parents' basement. That came about when gaming was a very solitary activity. People just they played a game. It was, they were the only ones involved. And I think over the last decade or so, you've seen a real shift and very rapid evolution, both with the power gamers, and you see the MMOs are very popular, and you see the people are coming together online. And on the casual side, you have the social gaming and all of those type of things. And with this pandemic, gaming has just become pervasive. It's just become a platform to interact with your friends, where, used to be like, oh, my friends moved away, and so I'll play games with them occasionally. And now it's like, my kids, I have 2 teenage boys, and they're playing games with their friends because it's the only way they can interact with their friends, other than just, Snapchat or stuff like that. So it's, gaming has not just become pervasive in that it's something we all do as kind of a part of escapism, like watch movies or binge TV shows or something, but it's become a form of interaction and communication. So yeah, it's not surprising to me at all that it's become so pervasive.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it seems like there's this silent majority out there of gamers who are casual gamers, but as Kiko mentioned, don't really admit or describe themselves as gamers. And I wonder why are we still talking about gamer stereotypes? Like, why do we even feel obligated to debunk these gamer stereotypes that are still around? It feels like we left this behind a long time ago, but we're still talking about it, right? So maybe Tack, do you want to tackle that one first?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a lot of it's driven by, obviously, previous conceptions of what it is, and the media continues to play onto that. And I think you have platforms like Twitch, and you have increasing number of streamers on YouTube. Facebook's now trying to get into it, right? Like, they are. Anytime you move into an industry or a lifestyle, you always start with those power users, right? You start with the power gamers, and they tend to exemplify it. I think, like Shake mentioned, they lean into that gamer persona, right? Like, hey, it's okay to be a gamer. It's okay for you to identify this as your lifestyle of choice. And so it's an easy mechanism to pick up on. But I think if you talk to anyone who's, anyone who's probably younger than 30, most of them probably don't self-identify as a gamer. But if you ask them what games do they play, like, I'd be surprised if you find many people who don't, list 2 or 3 games that they play.
Shake, you're nodding a lot. Do you want to say something?
I'm in full agreement with that statement of what game do you play, because I don't know anyone that's not a gamer. I guess the separation is where they self-identify as a gamer. They might associate being called a gamer as someone who does it professionally, or who might be a little bit more involved in the gaming community, but they're still a gamer and they don't realize that they really are. I had this conversation with my wife after our initial meeting, and I said, she's got one of the most addicting personalities out there, and she plays the game Raid, but the reason she doesn't play it, she'll say, I don't play it, I'm not a gamer. But the reason why she won't play is because she gets so addicted that she won't get anything else done in the house. So she won't get anything else done with the family. So I'm like, you are a gamer. You just won't call yourself a gamer. But the question is always, what is your game? And I think when you open up with that question, that tends to be the I guess the bridge between the average person realizing, oh yeah, I have a game that I play. I am a gamer. I asked my mom that same question a couple of days ago too, and come to realize that she's definitely a gamer. Her game used to be Monopoly and Scattergories, those game and cards, but games have advanced now. So she's been playing games on her phone, and we're realizing that a lot of people are gamers. They just won't call themselves that. I think that title is kind of associated with assuming that you're more of a professional, but no, we're all gamers. We just have to figure out what games people play.
Mm-hmm. And Jennifer, how about you?
Yeah, I completely agree with both what Tak and Shake are saying. I think one of the things we've really tried to do with Eleague, and we've both a weekly hour-long spot on TBS as well as regular digital programming. And within that, what we've really tried to do is not only show the breadth of the different sort of levels of gamers that someone might be, but also when we're showing competition, really showing the skills and the ability of top tier competitors. Because I think part of this, especially when you talk about the US, is there wasn't as much known sort of behind the scenes in terms of the structure or the ecosystem where you might have seen it in other regions. And so I think really on a competitive level, it's so important to be able to show those stories, be able to show sort of the height of competition behind those. And then at the same time, in something more casual, for us, we have an offering called Eleague Super Punch, which is really meant to meet those needs as well. And that's a celebration of really Twitch culture overall to be able to show that as well.
And Kiko, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll just say that, I mean, as a whole, we are more accepting of gaming, not just because it is a community activity now, as opposed to an isolated activity, as Tak was calling out, but because we are also seeing a lot of the benefits of gaming as well. So the FDA actually just in recent weeks approved a new therapy, which was a video game actually to combat ADHD. So we're seeing that this pervasiveness isn't just in the playing of games, but using games to gamify everything from helping support marketing, but also all the way down to supporting people through therapy. So this is a really exciting moment because it's more generally accepted.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's this myth that a certain kind of game is dying out, and other kinds of games are crowding them out. And there seem to be gamers who like those games and feel they have to be vocal about supporting those games to make sure they survive. And there's certain falseness to that. I mean, every form of gaming is doing well, and because Diablo Mobile is happening, that does not mean that Diablo 4 for the PC is not going to happen, right? So now, as far as just the pandemic goes, how do you think that has affected the world of gaming here? Maybe we'll just pick one person here. Shake, you want to tackle that one?
I think the pandemic, I always talk about like the fact that we have a situation where people are forced to stay home, doing the right thing to try to keep their family safe. But they're also in a tough situation where, families are struggling financially. People are losing jobs. But the gaming industry seems to flourish in those environments. And this is not the first time this has happened. If you go back to 2008, when the real estate crash was going on and it was a depression in America, this is another version of that. And this pandemic has allowed people to discover portions or aspects of their life that they never thought they could before. Like you didn't have the time because of work to get into Assassin's Creed and really play through all the different titles. And I think people are doing that now. You have people that have projects and books they want to read or whatever. But I think on the gaming side, it's always going to flourish in these sort of tough, global pandemics and depressions and things like that. I've been in the industry long enough to remember whenever there seems to be a huge increase in unemployment or financial struggle, the gaming industry seems to increase and rise. Game sales go up. When people are at home and they have nothing else to do, some people say they finished Netflix. And I always think that's a funny line to say. I finished Netflix. Like, you've watched everything. Gaming allows you to pour yourself into a world, travel to different places, and actually control the outcome of these scenarios. And you're basically role playing. I'm in a basketball environment where I get to pretend that I'm an NBA superstar, and I get to be a hero in front of all my viewers because, like a superhero, because they're seeing it from my perspective. And so I think that as someone who creates content, so I think that's the biggest advantage, sort of light at the end of the tunnel in terms of the way this industry is designed. Anytime there's a scenario like this, the gaming industry continues to flourish, and it's just not going anywhere. It just isn't. All the games that we've all ever played as kids are still available now. So, if you're behind on your gaming, you can always find time to catch up later.
I wanted to scoot along to another question here. What do you think brands need to know before they're entering the gaming space? And maybe Jennifer, do you want to kick us off there?
Sure. I mean, I think a key thing is there are just so many different ways to engage. It could be anything from a tournament that you could stand up, that you could have as something that you represent. It could be anything from, media ads, and there's really so many personalities in the space as well. It's probably one of the most customizable ecosystems to think about. I myself, full disclosure, was a media planner. So I come at things looking at it very much from a sales perspective in some ways. And I think, the thing about gaming and esports overall is just that I think what everyone keeps saying is everyone is a gamer in some way, shape, or form. And it's not about just media ads. It's not just about reach. There's just so many different opportunities and spaces to be in that you can truly find a way that your brand can connect with any of your consumers in that way.
And Tak, how about you?
Yeah, I think, on our pre-call, we were talking about this, right? Like, people don't have what's our movie going audience strategy, right? Like, you don't target people who are by people who go to movies and people who don't, right? Like, video games are now at that point, but I do think there are ways to enter. It's like understanding within the gaming segments, like who are the personas, who are the people you're going after within that broader segment. So it needs to be more defined than just gamers. That's too broad of a topic. But I do think if you are going, especially if your business has a reason to has a segmentation around those, you know, core gamers. Honestly, I encourage a lot of my friends, if they're going after that, you know, start on the influencer side of things, partnering with people like Shake and other streamers, content creators, because they'll hold your hand through the process. Like if you're not part of that culture yourself, stepping in can be daunting, and the gaming culture is very vocal, right? They will, you know, some people, if you go into certain lifestyles, they'll dismiss you and walk away. Gamers will, you know, they'll roast you. They have no problem throwing you under the bus. But working with those streaming partners, working with those content creators, you know, they'll hold your hand and they'll let you know what's good, what's not. So that's oftentimes really good. You know, as Jennifer said, there's always the media planning place. There's a whole new breed of content out there. There's tons of new platforms that are supporting this. So paid media is always a route to go. But if you're really interested in getting into the gaming culture, I think starting on the influencer side of things is a great place to start.
Mm-hmm. And Kiko, how about you and brands and games?
Yeah, I just say that when you're approaching and building out your gaming strategy, it doesn't necessarily have to be to the stereotypical gamer. You can have different tiers of that gaming strategy, and just recognize the fact that if you have a gaming strategy, it might be towards people who don't consider themselves or identify as gamers. They are just gamers, and that is just part of the landscape and the culture of the United States right now. So they don't necessarily have to call themselves gamers or have a lot of the same signals as the power gamers to be gamers. And so that's something to take into consideration. And the other thing to say is that there are a lot of tangential verticals. So in the data we showed today, you see a lot of correlation with other different verticals where you can engage with these different consumers in smart ways through those other verticals.
And Shake, your thoughts on brands and games, and also I followed that up with I mean, you've built this entire community around NBA 2K, and at the same time, you're a father. How does that factor into what you do and how you think about gaming as well?
That's a good question. Good two questions. For me, branding in general, I've done a lot of promos for several mobile games. Done many promos for a lot of major platform games as well. AAA titles. I've been flown out for EA Sports, 2K Sports for the last 8 years actually. So I've been part of an entire media campaign as an influencer. So number one, definitely start with the influencers, because when I started promoting for example, 2K Sports, it was just 5 of us, and now they fly out well over 100 different influencers, all to help promote their games. And this comes with, you know, T-shirts, other corporations that they're already affiliated with, clothing lines and different types of bags, you know, spray ground. A lot of companies pour their advertisement into our game, into the games that we play, to be seen by us influencers. So that's number one. The other thing is I like to pay attention to trends. So when I was streaming heavily on Facebook shot me a deal to stream on their platform to help build up their gaming platform and in the sports community. But I was paying real close attention to Fortnite. And I said, if I do Fortnite, we're going to see more views and more viewership. So, and I saw bigger checks coming in because I was paying attention to that trend when Fortnite was literally being lifted by other influencers. And so I'm never taken back by other influencers. In the gaming industry, we don't look at somebody else as strict competition. We see them as, hey, if he keeps pushing this, he's going to bring more viewers to our genre and keep things alive. So if I was a brand or a corporation trying to get my brands out there, I would definitely contact influencers, and I would absolutely pay attention to big events, trends, anything related to that's going to pull a lot of viewership in, and try to find myself in that mix. As a father, my wife and I are brand new proud parents of twins that just they were born in February, and we were really excited about that. I think that the focus for me and my family was to make sure that my business space doesn't really change, but it's all about balancing. You know, I spend a lot of time with my kids, with my wife. I do my best to create content and then also be vocal within my community. And then I spend that remaining time with my family and for myself, my own health. And it's all about balancing. I think being a father, you're definitely going to be, you're going to be tested in a lot of different ways, how to maintain your audience and maintain your absolute biggest fans at the household. So that's that whole myth of gamers being single and at home in somebody's basement. I don't know too many guys like that. Majority of the fan base that I'm associated with, or the people that I play in front of, tend to be just like me. You know, fathers, family members, hard workers. If they're single or if they're jobless at the time, you know, they come back around and they're still involved in the community or in this culture some way, some shape or form. So that's my best take on it.
Good, thank you. And Jennifer, maybe this might be one of our last questions here. Depends on how fast we go. But can you talk about Eleague's audience, and then also say the split between TV and digital for you guys?
Sure. Yeah. So for our audience and Eleague overall, as I mentioned when I started the conversation, we consider ourselves an esports and gaming entertainment brand. Us being powered by Turner Sports and part of WarnerMedia is really unique for us, because when we started, we're able to take all of the resources that we have that we've used for anything from a sports perspective or even from a network perspective, and able to infuse that when we think about esports and gaming. Our business really right now, as we think about our content, is split into buckets in terms of being around competitions, and that can be at the most top tier level, something like the FIFA Global Series, Rocket League Championship Series, are two ones that we've worked with this year, as well as more in terms of grassroots, what we call the Eleague Showdown. And that's something where we work with Battlefy as a tournament organizer and actually solicit fans to play on a weekly basis, and or we work with influencers in that capacity. When we look at our audience, one of the things we think about is what is the best presentation for the stories that we're trying to tell. And so when we think about from a digital perspective, that audience we think of in a lot of ways as being much more endemic. You know, every moment of gameplay is important to that. And when we think about Twitch or YouTube, for instance, that's where you will see those, you know, 8-9 hour streams where a moment of the game can't be missed. When we think about TBS, we think about it in terms of television perhaps being an entry point, or if you've seen the competition, it might be something that we want to show behind the scenes, the stories behind how the competitors got there, something new and different that if you were watching the competition, it's something new and different, and really bringing that to the masses. Now, that's all in terms of how we're talking about it from a competitive standpoint. One of the things that we've added this year, which we felt was very important, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of thinking about sort of the more broader thought around lifestyle of gaming, is a partnership with Twitch called Eleague Super Punch. And with that, we have weekly digital or nightly digital shows every week, Monday through Friday, and those culminate actually in a 1 hour TBS show every week. Prior to the pandemic, that was something that was done entirely live. We've worked to a model that it is pre-produced, the TBS show for the time being, but what we've done to make that just as interactive, because that's a huge part of the show, is making sure that Twitch chat is participating, that they're submitting clips, all of those things. What we've done is
Jennifer, we have to
created
wind up now, so please wind up.
Sure. And we've just created a with that, just an ability for a viewing party is all I would say there.
All right. Well, thank you. That just sort of flew by. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. For the next session in our series, we're going to take a deep dive into the gaming ecosystem on June 24th at 1 p.m. Pacific and 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you have questions on gaming here, please send them to brands@fullscreen.com. And I'm going to hand it over to Andrew. So thank you to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Dean, and thanks to my panelists, Shake, Kiko, Jennifer, Tak. I really appreciate it. We'll have this recording published tomorrow on YouTube. So if you're just joining us or you missed a part of this stream, feel free to check it out there. Thanks so much, all. Talk to you soon.
All right.